Hello Liverpool fans and welcome back to For the Reds. Today I'm bringing you a brand new show called Let's Talk. This is where me and a bunch of my mates get together and we talk a topic on Liverpool Football Club. Hence the Let's Talk. Today's Let's Talk is all about Stefan Bajcetic. Now before we get on to talking about Liverpool's new star boy, don't forget to give this video a like, hit that subscribe button and continue the amazing support that you've been showing me and the channel this past couple of months. So obviously his performance against Everton, some people I saw actually on Twitter, which I found quite interesting, was saying it was more like Wijnaldum than it was Thiago. I don't know if any of you saw that.
I 100% agree with that. It was actually going to be a point that I was going to lead with, to be honest.
Of course you agree with the minority.
No, but he's obviously a very similar player to Thiago, and I think people like to make that comparison because of, well, there's this whole narrative, and it's probably a true narrative, that Thiago kind of took Bajcetic under his wing. He's kind of looking after him, he's helping him develop as a player. But for me, like, I looked and I thought he wasn't quite... When you look at Thiago's style, he looks to get on the ball and kind of, I don't mean this in a negative way, but he kind of dwells on it in the sense of he likes to be a ball carrier. He likes to slow things down. A lot of people saying he slows things down negatively. I don't think that's true.
He's a tempo controller, isn't he? He wants to dictate the tempo rather than break things up.
And I feel like
as well as he can do that.
With Bajcetic, he was less. He did carry the ball, and he carried the ball well in situations where he had to, but he was more so somebody who kept things ticking over. And I feel like he did remind me of Wijnaldum. I was actually literally with that point that you just led with, you took the words out my mouth. So, well,
I've got an interesting one. I've got two stats. So Thiago has been responsible in games for
so fucking hell. Sorry. Fucking, so ZX Cola went in the wrong goal, down the wrong goal, not in the wrong goal. Fucking hell. Self-fulfilling prophecy, this, isn't it? Self-fulfilling prophecy.
We'll cut
so glad this isn't live.
We'll cut that. But yeah, so on Bajcetic being like Wijnaldum, I've got two stats. So Thiago is responsible for 12% of Liverpool's play this season, which is quite a high percentage, really, considering it's a singular player. Bajcetic was responsible for 6% of the play against Everton, which again, obviously, our left centre mid is more responsible for, the dictating of the tempo, dropping in between the centre halves. So that's quite interesting. And then two, it was Trent, Henderson and Salah. And this isn't so much just the comparison of Wijnaldum and Thiago. It's got other things, to do with it, but I find it interesting. Trent, Salah and Henderson combined 79 times versus Everton, whereas Bajcetic, Henderson and Núñez combined 22 times versus Everton. Now, obviously, coming into that, there's so many different things. You might have seen Everton's left side as a weak spot. You've got Trent, Mo and Hendo, obviously, have been playing together for years. So many mitigating factors. However, it's quite interesting, isn't it, to see it so lopsided, Mo?
Yeah, it is. We are dominant on that right hand side, and not so much so since I think Sadio left. The balance is gone as well. And Diaz getting injured early in the season didn't help because him and Robbo were starting to get a good connection, and with Thiago as well. But interestingly, what I saw as well is a lot of the time, especially off the ball, that Bajcetic was dropping in and making a two, and Henderson would often push on, and you saw that quite a lot. And Henderson has got the license, I think, and maybe the energy to do that, where he can combine, go on the right. Mo tucks in, Trent comes tucks in into the middle as well, and then just rotate. And so they've got a really good understanding that they've developed over the last 2-3 years, and it's going to take a while for that to happen on the left side.
Yeah, of course. But I don't know about you, Raf, but I saw similarities between what we did against Benfica away last season, if you remember, when Naby pushed forward and we played a 4-2-4. Now, obviously, there's talk long-term that we're looking for a 4-2-3-1 or 4-2-4, some form of double pivot. With Bajcetic, he's obviously years of centre half, but also playing a few games with Liverpool in the 8 and looking impressive. Do you see him sort of like being that double pivot along with a Fab, Thiago, Hendo, whoever it is going forward?
Yeah, I can see it. And even with his interview and even looking at some of like the statistical breakdown from like his impact in the team so far, I'm starting to see a trend. It's almost like he's kind of falls in between like a free six, kind of like in a double pivot that can roam a bit more. In a way, Thiago does, but like kind of like what Aid said, he's not necessarily controlling the game. But I was really happy to see in the Everton game he was able to actually switch to play when he wanted to. Some of his longer balls are a bit more accurate than usual. So I think he's carving out a unique role, which also is going to put us in a unique place when it comes to adding other midfielders this summer to figure out exactly how we want to shift that pivot. And it also makes you question, okay, do you want someone who's a bit different with more legs from a Henderson type, or do you want more of a controller? It really just depends on which way Klopp wants to take the midfield. I think Bajcetic showing a lot of different signs of being a decent ball carrier, a bit press resistant, and being able to make the passes when needed is really just going to put us in a position where we're not necessarily handcuffed by a specific player type this summer. We can add to the midfield budget-wise, but also just make sure we're adding players that can do the job.
Well, we said just before coming on, obviously before doing the recording, that there's not even potential, isn't there? Like you said, Mo, of either cutting down how many midfielders you need, or opening up a license to be like, right, well, now we can sell one of the midfielders that we might be looking to offload in a couple of years' time, and then go and spend that money on like Vardiol, is it Vardiol? Yeah, Vardiol or someone like that. Because obviously we've been linked for a left-footed centre half, so I think Bajcetic's emergence isn't just a case of like, well, thanks for improving us as a football team. However, it's what he could actually help regarding the the rebuild going forward. Now, for me and you spoke on a Spaces, I think it was, and it might have been a live stream actually as well a while ago about him going out on loan, especially if we miss out on European football, so we can go and get 38 games somewhere. However, this talk that his new contract that he's going to be going on to is in the region of £40,000 a week. You don't give that kind of money to someone you're sending out on loan, do you? Really?
No, he's around the squad next season, isn't he? I think we're probably going to be looking at sending Tyler Morton out for another loan, but maybe one in the Premiership this time. But no, I think he is going to be stepping around, and to be honest, based off the quality of performances he's put in every single time, we've had that level of faith in him. He does probably deserve to stick around. I think I hype up our young players a lot, but even my expectations have been exceeded massively. Like the tactical intelligence for someone so young as well. Like we really did. I don't know if anyone else noticed, but I felt like we interchanged in shape quite a lot. As we've covered previously, we obviously overloaded the right side. I feel like we not only did that because, as we mentioned, Henderson, Trent and Salah have a familiar partnership, but I feel as though we did that to give the left side of players that bit more space. Particularly, I felt like what we were trying to do is drag them over to the right side with the right side of players we have. Gakpo false nine, so he possibly draws the centre halves in a bit. I feel like we were really trying to isolate Darwin Núñez one-on-one with the opposing fullback.
Yeah, because he stayed quite wide, didn't he? And it was probably the most we've switched the ball. I mean, I don't know the stats around it, but it felt to me like it was the most we've switched the ball in the game for a good while.
Oh, yeah. I agree with that. But that's what I felt like we were trying to do. I said on a space before the game that I'd rather see Núñez through the middle and Gakpo off the left, and we did switch that a couple of times. But primarily, we had a game plan, and that was Gakpo false nine, which he was exceptional at. Isolate Núñez, and you give Bajcetic that little bit more space on the left side then. I feel like we went from, obviously on paper, you're looking at that and it's a 4-3-3, isn't it? But I looked at it a lot and thought, this is a bit like a 4-2-2-2, or okay, this is a bit of a 4-4-2 in moments. And I really enjoyed the fluidity of it, and the versatility of the players that were on the pitch allowed that to prosper, and it was really good to see. Like, it was really interesting that we had Bajcetic and Fabinho in a pivot, and we almost had Henderson like playing primarily in the other teams kind of half of the pitch. And to be honest, I'm thinking that maybe that's where we could get the best from Henderson now, because he's not the most press resistant. He's probably not the most confident on the ball, especially given his recent performances. But like as a pressing trigger and as somebody who can occupy the opposition half, while Bajcetic acts as a bit more of kind of a controller in a way. I think it was all really good. I think tactically we were fantastic. Bajcetic was a very, very important part in that, as we know.
Yeah.
His intelligence, but also how the team set up to allow him to have space.
No, I think that's a really good point. I think Bajcetic has allowed the manager to do that. Yeah, you know, on Monday, guys. I think when you have somebody, because we've all called for it this season as well. We've said if you're going to play Fabinho, you need to get legs around him. You know, obviously covering ground has never been Fab's strongest point, and having Henderson, who was a willing runner forward-wise, but Bajcetic, who seemed to be constantly covering Fab, whether Fab went and pressed and he got skimmed, or whether, you know, Fab made a mistake. You know, he just always seemed to be there. But I want to come to you, Alice, on the sort of like the psychological. Now I can stay in the psychological point of view because of what H said about the tactical understanding. But what I saw on Twitter the other day was someone make a really good comparison of this is probably the first player we've had since Trent who's had that belief around him of like, you know what, you're good enough. Like you are going to stick around Liverpool. There's no low move for you. You're good enough. And someone said, actually, he could even potentially be better, not in the sense of footballing ability, but Trent came into a Liverpool team that was on the up. Bajcetic just came into a struggling Liverpool team and has had the requirements of an 18-year-old to try and save us. Like, is that an inclination into his mentality of how strong it might actually be to come into a struggling side and perform so well? Or do you think it's just a case of that's just his natural, you know, I'm not playing with any fear kind of thing?
I reckon he's gone, I've got nothing to lose here. I'm not going to be as bad as whatever else is happening. All I can do is do my best. And that shows a good mentality. But I do worry a lot that he's going to have all this pressure put on him, an entire fan base almost relying on him to save this season. And I worry how that could affect him. Like, obviously, it's good to give him encouragement, but at the same time, putting almost like the weight of the world on his shoulders at such a young age, it's a hard thing to deal with.
I think you're right, because as well, like, listen, we all rate him, don't we? Do you know what I mean? We all know how good he is, but I think you've got a really good point in the sense of, so let's say a hypothetical, guys. Real Madrid's coming up, first leg. You know, he's played away at Newcastle again. He's had a really good game. There's going to be a lot of cry for be like, right, you need to start this Champions League last 16 against Real Madrid. That's a whole different kind of level and task. It's, you know, Anfield under the lights, things like that. Could that be then a case of too much too soon? Do we reckon? Based
off what I've seen of him as a footballer and what I can tell from him as a personality, I think he's somebody who will thrive in that situation. I feel as though with a personality like Klopp, who his man management is second to none, he'll be able to put an arm around him and go, like, this is a massive moment. You're a kid. This is going to help you in the future, even if you have the worst game of your life, just to get this out of the way and for this to be your first European experience, because you are going to have these down the line. You were a good enough player to be playing for Liverpool in the European Cup against the Real Madrid of the world. I think Klopp can just put an arm around him and go, even if you have an absolute stinker, this is only the beginning. So don't let it get you down too much.
Yeah, because he had a rough game away at the Etihad, didn't he, Mo? And then they brought him off at half time. Gaffer hooked him, you know, brought Fab on, but brought him back in, persisted with him. You know, do you see that? Do you see what H is saying? Arm around the shoulder. Listen, you know, you've earned the right to play in this Real Madrid tie.
Yeah. It's exactly the game I was going to reference when I watched that game at the Etihad, and I said after the game, I said he had a horrible performance, but we'll see if he's got the minerals to come back from it stronger, or is he going to fold under that poor performance? And what he showed was that he actually excelled. He improved. He probably went away and said, okay, rewatched his own game. Or what did I do wrong? And then just improved and showed that on the training field. And Klopp loves a player that just takes it upon himself to improve and have that desire to improve. So I think mentally he's okay. He'll be okay. He looks like a guy that's naturally, things don't faze him. He's there just to play football. He's got that that, I don't know, the mentality of just play your game, play football, enjoy it, be in and about it, and also he loves to win his own battles. The guy is not afraid.
To play devil's advocate, though, how many young talents have we seen go from being considered one of the greatest, going to be the next Messi, Ronaldo, whoever they're going to be, and then the pressure ends up getting to them and they don't succeed? Like Dele Alli, for example. I always use him as a prime example.
Plenty, but my counter argument to that is, if you look at a lot of those names, they've not been in as good environments as what Liverpool Football Club with Jurgen Klopp is. Like if you look at Jurgen Klopp's track record of developing players, it's fantastic. It's almost...
Is it a good environment at the moment? Like the tension between Milner and Van Dijk, or the negativity on social media, the competitiveness of not winning.
I think the social media thing can be a problem, and that's why I'm so passionate about, like, don't be a dickhead to the players on social media. But I think the whole Milner Van Dijk thing, like, that was months ago. I feel like that's just something people will look into too much. For footballers to have a disagreement on a football pitch isn't unheard of. Do you know what I mean? Like, you can shout at your teammate, and then an hour later, behind, like, you shake the hand and you just go, "It's footy's footy, isn't it?" And then
you can see also from his interview, like after the game, it's like nothing fazed him. It wasn't a big deal for him. He wasn't nervous. He was just a guy that was enjoying his football. And I think that's what Klopp has told him to do. Just enjoy it. No pressure. Do whatever. Like he gave the ball away quite a bit in that game. However, he didn't put his head down. He was there again, going back again and again.
I think
the worry is, the worry is him losing that enjoyment. What if all the pressure and the negativity gets to a point where he doesn't enjoy it anymore?
I think it's a case of, it's a very hypothetical yet possible case. I just can't help but feel, and maybe this is blind faith and optimism in what he's got around him and the club in general, but I genuinely believe that he's got the right people around him to keep his head screwed on him. If he has any issues, he's got the right people around him to help him overcome them.
I also don't think, especially in this Real Madrid game, it doesn't feel like, it feels like a European night absolutely leading up. But if you follow the club for a while, you understand, like, these UCL games with Real Madrid are more like derbies. They have a bit of a grafting feel to them. So if I can throw Bajcetic into a Merseyside derby and he looked like the best midfielder on the pitch, I feel a bit more confident putting him in against a Madrid, which is going to be, it's almost like a combination of a derby between Everton and the technical ability needed to excel in like a Liverpool City match, and it's a hybrid of both. It's a bit of a grafted fixture. There's going to be yellow cards on both sides, but then there's also a sense of like technical quality that's going to be needed to get the result out. And I think he's shown enough of both so far to give him the nod. But I think with the difference between this fixture and the City fixture, I would rather start him more as an 8 rather than a 6.
I think I'm leaning towards that.
6 with Kroos and Modric in the midfield.
I'd imagine going forward now, especially like ultimately we have to build off the Derby victory purely because one, that's our first win in 2023 in the Premier League, and two, I think we're all not in doubt that that's probably the best we've looked all season in a game, in the sense of how we've looked, previous. Like that, watching it on Monday to me felt like watching old Liverpool. The 7-1 against Rangers, the 9-0 against Bournemouth, even the 1-0 against Manchester City. It still didn't feel vintage. Whereas Monday felt like old us. Crowd was on side. You had, like I said, you had Bajcetic flying all over the place, Hendo flying all over the place.
That Rangers game, I was watching that, and like we went 1-0 down, didn't we? And like I was thinking, we're actually going to get beat by these. Like and then the second half, we come out absolutely flying, and we absolutely battered them. I was buzzing because I absolutely ate them, and just to show you how much I ate them, I'm going to get something out.
I mean, he's just said he's going to get something out, so this could be anything.
He actually got that the day we met because someone here found it for him.
I was worried what he was going to get out then.
It's a Celta cap, not me cock.
Yeah, good. Thank God. But going
maybe after the show.
Maybe in the green room. If we bring it all the way back to when he first came in, like we said, we spoke about the Manchester City game and his struggles, and then to be fair, since then he's had some decent battles. He's played against Ruben Neves, he's played against McAllister, Caicedo, and every time we've played those games, even though we've been on the wrong end of results, we've always said Bajcetic is the positive coming out of it. He's the one who's had a good game. He's the one who looks like he's got legs. He's the one who's shown the energy. Even against Chelsea, he had an half-decent game. So I suppose the question comes, when do you rein them in, but when do you also just go, you know what, now you are good enough for this level? I feel like Newcastle on the weekend will be a real sort of tough task for him, in the sense of the last 4 to 5 games before the derby, the feeling around the club has been pretty low. The expectations of getting Champions League have been quite slim. The expectations of what's going to happen with the club going forward has been quite slim, off the pitch. And obviously that does seep into the players, and it seeps into the atmosphere around the AXA training centre and Anfield and things. So that, like Alice said before, there is that license to just go, right, well, I can't do anything worse than what's going on at the moment because things are pretty crap. So the leash is off. However, results went our way. We all said if we win the derby and we put in a good performance, then who knows? If we beat Newcastle, we then go 6 points behind top 4, and obviously we've took 3 points off them. And I feel like
as well, won't we?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So I now feel like, well, this Newcastle game is probably going to be the first game he plays in where everyone's like, well, we're back, but there's confidence is high again now. We've won a game, we've won the derby, we've played well, we beat Newcastle, we're 6 points behind, game in hand. Who knows? And then, as Alex said before, alluded to, your expectation then changes. It's now no longer right, Sam. Well, I'm just playing with the leash off because we're crap. Now it's like, oh, I'm 18 and there's expectation here because we're back to being Liverpool Football Club where we need to win every game. Do you get what I'm getting at, Mo?
Yeah. I get exactly what you're getting, but I think from his body language, I don't think that's going to affect him too much. He's a guy, he comes across a guy that whether he plays well or even if he plays crap, I think he's those guys that goes, re-watches himself and then tries to improve his own game and not be too worried about the outside noise or what have you. I don't even think he has any. Does he have any social media? I haven't seen him.
I'm not seeing.
He's got an
Insta. Yeah, he's got an Insta, but that probably won't be managed by him.
He came up on my TikTok For You page this morning.
It's nowhere near as much of a negative atmosphere as Twitter is, though. Do you know what I mean? Like,
yeah.
Oh yeah.
Instagram, you can just post a picture of yourself, even if it's not in behind the account. Do you know what I mean? You can just go, I want this put on, I want this caption to his agent. But with Twitter, it's a bit more complicated because, like, if you somewhat just log in and you can type your own name in straight away, and like for him at the moment, it'll be positive because obviously he's fucking boss and he's been playing like it. But say if you're a struggling player, say you're a Jordan Henderson after the bad game, or a Joe Gomez, or Curtis Jones, or whoever the current Twitter fan base wants to turn on at the particular moment in time, you searching your own name up is not going to end well for you. Particularly if you're affected by what people write about you on the internet.
Yeah. At this moment in time, I think he's just living the dream. He doesn't care right now. Like
you could see that in his interview, couldn't you? How excited he was and how buzzing he was.
Exactly. Yeah, he's just living the dream. He's like, whether play crap, play well, whatever. I'm playing in the first team and I'm going to enjoy it as much as possible. And then maybe the pressure will come later on when he's established and there's heavy expectations on him. and then you might have to reassess how he reacts to that. But right now, I don't think it will affect him too much.
I think him kind of falling under Thiago's wing has helped because Thiago was kind of plucked early on to play well at Barca. The fact that like his dad and Thiago's dad also played at Celta Vigo professionally as well. So I think
I didn't know the guy off Twitter had played with.
So it's one of them situations where he was like groomed for it in a way too. So I think he will adjust well considering kind of like his circle, like his dad's always going to be in his ear, like want him to play well, but his dad's been there to a professional level, so it'll help keep him grounded with the combination of Thiago and especially with the Nick group that he's like falling into. From what I'm hearing, like his group is Diaz, Darwin, Thiago, and Millie. And the truth of the matter is, people say whatever they want to say about Milner on the pitch, but you want a young lad coming through to take to Millie to understand what it takes to be a professional footballer in England. And there's not really a much better player that can teach him that right now.
No, and that group, Raf, has got a nice blend, hasn't it? It's got the experience and the footballing ability of Thiago. It's got literally the epitome of professionalism with James Milner. You've got the youth of Darwin Núñez to have a crack and have a laugh with. And then you've got Luis Diaz, who's one of our star players, who knows what it feels like to have that level of expectation of you need to be a 10 out of 10 every week for Liverpool Football Club. So I think as far as a group, of a support network, you can't really get much better than them four, can you? And that's excluding, by the way, the advice you'll be getting off Pep Lijnders, Jordan Henderson, Jurgen Klopp, people like that. So we'll end on the end note of sort of
just on that previous point a second. I am glad to hear he's not fallen into the group of like Carvalho and Elliott, because I feel like the last thing he needs is the reputation as well that them two come with, especially Elliot going around sleeping with loads of girls. Do you know what I mean? Having a reputation is not always a good thing.
He's really turned the corner with that though, Elliot, hasn't he? Like,
I know, but
everything I can gather, he's massively like
they stick. And the second you have a bad game, your pass gets brought up. Don't forget saving chat.
No, I think
you guys got that reference.
I think you're right, Alex.
I don't think that Snapchat thing was real, but
hey, go ahead. I don't know, He was in my
you never know, do you? But
he's been out with half a mellow. But no, I think if, as a Twitter Spaces joke, by the way, if anyone who's watching doesn't get that, I think you have a point in the sense of when you're a youth player coming through, it can be so easy to just get attached to other 18, 19-year-olds. And then what happens is you've got an accumulation of 18, 19-year-olds who we all know this generation of kids coming through is different to the generation of obviously the footballers, Thiago and James Milner, etc. And there's pros and cons to both sides and how they can help each other. It's always helpful to not just stick with the same age group, isn't it? You want to pluck little bits from other areas of football. And I think
you also don't want it to become cliquey as well. Do you know what I mean? Where it feels like you can't approach certain people because they're not part of your group or whatever. Do you know what I mean? I'm not saying it is like that, but you don't want it to become like that either.
Yeah. No, of course. And at the end of the day, he's got Thiago and Millie in his corner. So straight away, he can go and approach Virgil van Dijk if he wants to. Or he can go and, he can go and approach the senior figures because there's senior figures who have took him under his wing. So if Virgil van Dijk will see it as well, if Thiago and Millie get on with you, well, there's a good chance that, you sound with me kind of thing. But regardless of all those things, I'm sure Liverpool Football Club know what they're doing within their internals to keep everything tight knit. But I want to talk on the end note. I just want to talk about the future for him. So we spoke about the potential £40,000 a week contract, which alludes to the likelihood of you going on loan is next to none. So going forward now, where do you see it, Raf? Do you see him as he solved an issue that we thought we were going to have to fix with a transfer, or is he just a case of no, you're just another number of quality to come in alongside more signings?
I think right now he kind of like cemented himself a bit ahead in the pecking order of Tyler Morton, as well as Tyler Morton's been playing at Blackburn. I think the fact that he's betting in with this current team right now, and he will be there for the next season, kind of betting in contention to start and in the part of the squad, that puts a leg up. To me right now, he's number 1, number 2 academy prospect in midfield. So I think it doesn't change what we do in the summer, because at the end of the day, we still have to fulfill an English quota, and he won't qualify till a couple more years from now. But I think preparing him to be the next midfield 3 of 2024, 2025 kind of thing isn't a bad idea.
Sorry to interrupt you, Raf. I don't think he actually takes up a non-homegrown spot with all the Premier League squad rules work.
He doesn't take one up because he's below under 21. So if you're under 21, you're just not regarded. Yeah. However,
when he turns 22, he takes a homegrown spot, right?
Yeah. So what Raf's saying is, if under 21, you make 2 consecutive seasons for an English club, then you go to 21 and above, then you are classed as homegrown. Yeah. So
okay.
So he would actually, as Raf is alluding to, he would fix that issue, just not, unfortunately, next season. However, not next season, the season after, I think squad size is getting increased because of the new Champions League and potential League Cup formats and the Club World Cup. So I'd imagine that with that increase in the homegrown quota is going to increase, and then he'll help us out, won't he? But like Curtis Jones next season, he now qualifies as homegrown. So when I had this discussion before on Twitter with people when they were saying you can't get rid of that many people because it's the homegrown quota. Yes, but also Curtis Jones then qualifies. Harvey Elliott, not this season, next season, then qualifies. So, I don't think the club are worrying too much about that, are they?
Is Carvalho considered homegrown yet, or does he need to wait?
I think
he is.
He moved. As soon as he turns 21, he will be. Like, he's arrived from.
He was in the Fulham Academy.
From Portugal. Fulham Academy, but he arrived to the country as a Portuguese kid at the age of 7. So from there on, he's lived in England.
I meant more of an age thing. I can't remember how old he is, to be honest.
He's 20, I think.
Yeah, that sounds about right.
So obviously he'll next season after January onwards qualify as homegrown. So I don't think the club are worrying too much about that. It's an interesting point. I think with that, and I get what you mean, Raf, in the sense of like it's you still want to make those signings because you still want to bet him in, don't you? You don't want it to just be like, oh right, Sound, you've played a couple of good games for Liverpool, right? We don't need Caicedo because you can do it. There's a difference, isn't there, in profile if we're going to be brutally honest. For you though, Mo, where do you see his future lying? But I'm going to throw in a bit of a curveball here. If we don't qualify for Europe, so next season you've got 38 Premier League games, 1 League Cup, 1 FA Cup guaranteed. So you've got 40 games guaranteed. Do you see that then a case of a Curtis Jones might get a loan, or Bajcetic goes and gets a loan, or is it a case of like, well, no, we'll just still squad pile?
Yeah, I think we'll still make or sign the people that we need to sign, regardless of what competitions we're in next season. And I don't think he'll be put out on loan. And I don't think Curtis Jones will be put out on loan, to be honest. It's either sell or keep for him. However, I would love to see him taking on the Henderson role and get like a dedicated, strong, fast, can cover ground as a DM. And that way we'll see because what you're seeing is like, I know a lot of people blame Pep Linders for our downfall, but what we're seeing is a lot of the young coaches. We saw the Bayern Munich PSG game yesterday, and with Nagelsmann, a lot of the new younger coaches are starting to follow a philosophy of like there's no set position, so players interchange a lot, and I think H alluded to it before. That's what I think Liverpool are starting to evolve into, or want to evolve into, and they love versatile players that can interchange in bloody different positions and and cause havoc, as you say, and keep the teams that are well organized, keep them guessing, because Trent can pop up at centre forward. You saw that in the beginning of the season. Sometimes you saw him at centre forward and you're like, what was he doing there? But I think the game is evolving into that. And so these players are starting to adapt and become like more intelligent. And so I would love to see him in and around there. And the reason why I say it is because of that Aston Villa finish that he did. He just exuded so much composure, where not to just blast it. The ball ran onto him. He didn't blast it. He just took it on the first touch, took it past the keeper, and then shot with his left foot. And that's what I thought. You know what? I think he's beyond a DM. Although he can play there, but I think he's beyond the DM.
I think you make a good point about the flexibility. I think clubs are also getting onto it now, being like, well, I pay you a hefty sum of money here, and if you can only play one position in a football team when there's 11 on the pitch, why am I paying you so much money? Do you get, just from a business point of view, it's like, it's like you're not going to pay someone in Asda, £40,000 a week because they're really good at stacking shelves, but they can't do anything else. You need to be multi-talented, multifunctional in the current day, and I think that's a really good point about his goal threat, because that's the only time we've really seen it. I mean, he had the volley, didn't he, against Everton, which was effectively a pass back. But actually, in and around the box, when we've got him there, he's shown a calmness and a composure that, maybe we've lacked a little bit in midfield. But what about for you, H? We'll bring it on the end note again of obviously Bajcetic in the future. So we spoke about, obviously, we'll still, we think we'll still sign players. And we spoke about Mo saying, he wants to see him in different situations and, maybe throw him in at right mid. Or if we do go to this 4-2-3-1, maybe even throw him in as the advanced midfielder. I want to talk a little bit more long term, but in the sense of just this season. Where do you see him from now till the end of this season? Do you think he's integral? Do you think he needs to be starting? Or once Thiago's back fit, once Luis Diaz is back in, do you see him sort of like coming back away, if you get what I mean?
I think he's massively important for the rest of the season. Like, I feel as though he's had enough. He showed us enough to basically say that he will be important for the rest of the season. As if he's fit, I want to see him. If he's not starting, I want to see him getting on the pitch. Like, for me, he's him, Keita, and Thiago. They're the three players who I'm thinking, if they're fit, I want to see them getting minutes, whether it's starting or being subbed on. Like, they're the three players who I'm looking and thinking are the most kind of important pieces of the midfield. But absolutely. And while Thiago's gone, yes, I'm happy to see him in that kind of left-sided central midfield role, or on the left side of a double pivot if we're playing with 4-2-3-1, or just a double pivot in general. But once Thiago comes back, then I'm happy to have him as the defensive midfielder, because he does a fantastic job there to show that level of versatility at such a young age. And he can play centre-half as well, although I'm not sure if he quite has the physicality for that at senior level, particularly just yet as well. The fact that he can do so many things at such a young age is a fantastic sign. He's played two different positions for Liverpool at senior level this season, absolutely burst onto the scene, and he's smashed it. And then beyond that, I see him at the very, very least being an important squad player next season. And why would you not want him to be an important squad player? Because if you don't give him minutes next season, you're just stunting a fantastic young player's development.
No, I think you're absolutely spot on. And, I put a tweet out before when I said, because I think it was Chris Bascom said that Klopp now sees him as integral to the future, like as in like next season going forward. And I quote tweeted it saying that I think this is perfect. I think he's the ideal blend of what a future Klopp midfielder will look like. Technically gifted on the ball, but you're gonna have to get a workhorse and you've got a great tactical understanding. I think we highlight the likes of Pedri and we highlight the likes of Gavi so much because they've been in around Barcelona for a good few months, some of them a year or so now, and that's completely understandable. I would not be surprised to see this lad come the end of the season get similar type of hype. I think the more you see him, the more you watch him, the more I've been impressed, and the more you realise that we've got an absolute player on our hands. And I don't know about you, but I feel like every every criticism that he's had, he seems to rectify the next game. Like the Manchester City one was pressure on the ball, passing ability weren't great, covering ground, bang, he fixes that. And then it was, I think it was Wolves in the cup. You could see the things he'd fixed. And I remember watching his passing, and his passing was a little bit loose, and it weren't quite up to senior level. It just needed to be punched in a little bit more. Bang, Chelsea at home, Brighton away starts to show that. And then yesterday, as Raf alluded to before, starts to show this mad switch of play that we've not really seen from him as well. So if a player can accelerate at that level and improve his game, the possibilities are endless, aren't they? But thanks everyone for coming on. I think it's been a really good chat, actually. Thanks for watching, Reds. Now, leave a comment down below what you want us to talk about next in the new episode of Let's Talk. Hopefully, it's going to be a weekly thing. If you enjoyed it, hit the like, hit the subscribe, watch the videos that are popping up here, whatever they are, and I'll see you all in the next one. See you later.